Welcome to the Better Two podcast. I'm your host, Donna. Today's guest is Crispian Mills from Kula Shaker. Crispin and I go on an existential trip talking about psychic vampires, energy, well, new music, and so much more. So tune in. Hi, Crispin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Are we disembodied voices or are we
Oh no,
picture as
we're
well?
on picture. We're picture on picture as well. Yes. So,
My God, I'm so glad I tidied my room.
oh well, it's real life. Look at it this way: it's authenticity.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want my authentic life. It's too messy. I've had to tidy it up.
How do I say? What you see here is not what you get. I
Okay,
I moved and I experienced cancer, and so getting things done and clean is not exactly what is in the forte at this moment. So
right.
I understand. Life happens. It takes how do you say this? Life happens, and what you have planned sometimes doesn't work out that way. So it's all good. So, but we're not here to talk about any of tidiness and anything else. You have a new song out called Charge of the Light Brigade, and you also are going on tour with the Dandy Warhols.
That's right.
Yeah. I talked to Pete from the Dandies not too long ago. So, are you excited about coming over to the US, or are you just kind of going,
Yeah, yeah. No, of course. We know we're buzzing about it. We can't wait. We came to America a couple of years ago, and I had a bad bout of laryngitis, which
Ooh,
had been brought on just by just too much playing and not I don't mean too much playing gigs and not
mhm,
enough rest time and traveling and and it was just unfortunate. It does happen sometimes, and it's a huge kind of blow in the middle of the tour to just have to cancel a whole load of dates. And so we're coming back really to make amends. Um, and it's great to be playing with the Dandies as well, and we're doing some of our shows on the east, and then joining up forces with them on the west and in Texas too, playing at Levitation. And a lot of bands are doing this now. They're joining forces and finding bands that where where there's a kind of a crossover of fans. They're not necessarily the same, but there's a sort of sympathy and a chemistry that kind of works to the bands complement each other. And yeah, it really works, because the world is completely sort of bankrupt,
yeah.
and everything costs so much, and a lot of bands are dying out there just trying to make ends meet, even on fairly respectable gig sizes. Still, the costs of everything is just gone nuts.
Oh,
So this
yeah.
is the new thing.
Yeah, and I mean, the cost of touring now is crazy. The cost of tickets are crazy. Tomorrow is actually Live 8, which I got to go to in Philadelphia, and I still have my ticket. And my ticket for that day was $50. And back then, ticket prices were like 12 something, but $50 for how many bands? That's unheard of nowadays. And it's not, and it's unfortunate, but you guys also have to support yourself, and nobody really thinks about all that goes into a tour, all the cost.
Well, there's you can do like little rock and roll tours in a splitter van when you're at a certain level, and also when you're at a certain age. But it gets to a point where people expect more of a show, and also it'll kill you. My friend of mine, an older musician, the road, he literally was killed by it, and I guess he died with his boots on, but it's still not very romantic when it's happening to you. So we intend to stay around a little bit longer and play a few more gigs, and so you just gotta pace yourself. But yeah, it's gonna be exciting, and America always we've never really gotten over the romantic myth of America as the land of rock and roll. We can't shake it off. It doesn't matter. We still have to come and play in America if you play this kind of music. You have to do it. I mean, I love coming to Italy I love playing in Italy, but it's not the land of rock and roll. It's the land of the of the Roman Empire,
Yes.
and of Fellini and all those kind of things. But yeah, I talk about a lot about when people ask me about America, and that some of those formative experiences that you have, like first time I saw the Mississippi River like a life-changing moment. It was like seeing the River Ganges. It was like seeing something from a fairy tale, and you sense the power of that river as well. It's not, like it has a personality, and it has an energy that you can't help but tune into. And I just found myself thinking about all those songs about that river.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I grew up in New Orleans. So for me, the Mississippi River was there. It was nothing mystical. The swamplands were more mystical. They had more of the mystical vibe, but the Mississippi was the Mississippi. It was all present, all knowing because it runs right through the city. And going down over the levee too near where the river is, it's a different experience. And it all depends on if you're at the Riverwalk or if you're actually on the other side by the actual rocks. And there
Yeah.
isn't as an older adult, yeah, I appreciated the energy of it, the power of it, the magnitude. But growing up as a kid, you're just kind of like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's the Mississippi. We're gonna go on the ferry boat, and the ferry boat was awesome to ride on because you're on the river or a paddle boat. But still, it wasn't the whole what you're describing of the appreciation you have sometimes more as you get older.
Yeah, sure. It's the time and the place. Something could be standing right behind you. It's not until it taps you on the shoulder that you realize what you're in the presence of. And yeah, I was just really lucky. I wasn't expecting it. That's the other thing, is I turned a corner. We were playing in New Orleans, and I
Okay.
turned a corner, and I just suddenly found myself looking at this river and just like being, really deeply affected by it. And I that it was, when you have a kind of you have a pilgrimage moment.
Hmm.
You take those impressions on a pilgrimage. You take them with you for the rest of your life, and they're in your, they've kind of shaped your view of the world.
And I think that's unfortunately in a lot of cases nowadays, especially with all the media that we are bombarded with, we don't necessarily have that connection. We don't see that connection when we have that moment. I mean, my late husband, he was legally blind, and we used to have to drive through farm country to get back to our house after he had dialysis. And I could see the sunsets, the awe-inspiring sunsets. And I used to live in Chicago too, and I would see the sunrises off Lake Michigan. And I've always appreciated that moment because that moment is one small bit of life. And unfortunately, I'd be like, wow, look at the sunset. And it took me a while to realize that I would have to describe it to him because he couldn't see what I saw. And so that to me, in a way, both of those moments, because I'm looking at it, but also describing it to him became a gift. And it's a thing that we don't necessarily take that moment. We're driving, we're focused, we don't look at what's around us.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what do they call it these days? Like being present in the moment, that mindfulness, your discipline. It's just sort of slowing down and letting the world communicate to you, letting being in touch with your feelings and in touch with nature. I mean, I've moved right to the very furthest southwestern tip of Britain to 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 just chill out and slow down, and to be able to work and do what I do in a kind of a healthy environment where I'm not distracted, and life has a different pace here. And I don't mind having to get on a train for 7 hours if it means that I come back to this kind of peace. But it's some people don't like it. I'm not sure if my kids like it. I think they want a rave.
But that's the thing. I mean, as a younger person, we want that we like the chaos. We can function in the chaos. We can embrace those things. And as we start realizing that there's more to life than just this constant I don't want to say energy bombardment because yes, I was the girl that would get up on the speaker and dance at the club and be in my own world and have fun. But, as I would think me in my 40s at that point would have been like, no, I don't want to go. I'll pass. And I think we realize that there's more to us being connected with with the environment, with people that really have something to give us. That it comes with age. I mean, I hate to say it, it comes with age. It's like listening to your body. You know that if you keep singing and singing and singing, you're going to blow your voice. And so you start paying attention to those things. You start listening to your body, you start listening to what's around you. And I think those things you offer gratitude and you appreciate things more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, who wants to be young?
Oh, I'm not look, let's be honest.
Yeah.
If I could have the knowledge that I have now and have my body that I used to have then, hey, we'd be all good.
Yeah, I mean, we're I find actually that, being the age I am now, it's kind of pushing me more to make the most of of the time I have left, and of the also the state of my voice and things like that. And to where I think we play as a band, I think we play even more aggressively than we did when we were kids. I mean, we were always pretty high energy, jumping around, but now we're I don't know, I guess we don't want to lose that edge, and we know it's very easy to do so. So we kind of attack it even more. And so sometimes your age can, spur you on. It's certainly true for us.
Well, I think like you said, you get to the point where you're like, okay, so how much time do I have left? And that is when you face your own mortality. And I know when you were 11, you realize that, hey, one day I'm going to die. But as you age and you really do see that you're inching closer and you only have so much time to do what you need to do, it does make you appreciate it. Where, when
Yeah.
you were younger, when you started out, you were like, okay, I got this, I can do this. You don't have that whole impression that you're going to die, even though you know in the back of your head you're going to. I think as we're younger, we don't. We just,
Well, it's that look at understanding your life in terms of having many chapters. Oh, you got a magic mug there. I just you flashed. Today I will make magic happen. Oh yes.
mhm.
And it is happening. I think, see, I was about 10 or 11 when I first kind of thought about mortality. And in fact, I thought I was about to die around the age of 10 or 11. I suddenly had a real shock and was confronted by the possibility that I might die.
Mm.
And it really shook me up. It really come out of nowhere. And uh, it made me make inquiries into what it's all about. And I was quite, as I say, I was quite shaken and had to talk to a doctor about it. Actually, my mum was quite worried about me because it had changed me, this
Yeah.
shock. And I was saying to the doctor, "We're all going to die. Like, have you not thought about this? I mean, this is. I just like, why did nobody tell me?" And he was like, "What are you worrying about this for? You should be chasing girls." And I was like, I don't know, I wasn't even a goth. I didn't have any excuse for this behavior. I just, I'd kind of gone into a different way of looking at things. And so it definitely set me off on a process of inquiry. And it made me a bit, I guess it made me a bit serious, overly serious about things at times. And then I was very lucky to meet a girl, a beautiful girl who sort of set me off in a spiritual direction as well. I was sort of just sort of taking her lead really, and so the right influences were there for me to just sort of take an interest and find the value in talking and understanding what is the soul, what's the nature of the soul, and um, how to understand, to be here now, to value the present, to understand the importance that that's all we have is now, but also to at the same time to appreciate that life is an eternal energy, and it doesn't stop. You got to understand that this life that we can only see now is a very limited field of vision, and we're part of something that lasts forever. That's the eternal nature of the soul. So it's a big subject to grapple with when you're 11.
Oh yeah.
But and you don't ever kind of get to a place where you know everything ever. Even the great wise sages, they all talk about how it's inconceivable, the spiritual reality, but at the same time you can connect to it, and that's what yoga means. It means union, and by connecting and having a relationship with the soul, you end up cultivating an understanding that is kind of goes beyond the mind, goes beyond words, and is ultimately the relationships about the heart. And so it changed me, and it set me off on a course that has been really made me what I am as a songwriter, and made me appreciate other people who are on a similar path. And really, I tend to group the world into people who are on the path and people who are not. And and I think the rock and roll is an amazing expression of a spiritual impulse. Rock and roll really came from the church. I guess that's why Jerry Lee Lewis asked Elvis, "Do you think we're going to go to hell or heaven for this?" Because they knew
Yeah.
that this is spiritual music, and maybe they weren't using it for the right reasons. I guess they were confused.
Well, I
Um,
mean, go ahead.
well, it's something about the roots of, and we're going back to America now. We're going back to the myth of the land of rock and roll, and where it came from, and how it's always had a spiritual dimension to it, and the souls um, looking for salvation, or looking for a way to enjoy the world, like that's the doing the deal with the devil. So the roots of rock and roll are very, pretty profound, and yet at the same time it's just like 3 minutes of fun.
Well, 3 minutes of fun, but also 3 minutes of raising a vibration. I mean, that's the one thing people it's more commonly talked about now, but the vibration that has been raised by, music and the whole statement of raising the roof or raising the house. I mean, the fact of the matter is energy when you're doing the music, there's certain vibrations that go through it, and I know when you're on stage, you're feeding off the energy of the crowd's feeding off the energy of you, and there's this whole energy exchange, and I don't think people look at it from the metaphysical principles of how much energy we exchange, whether it's us having a conversation or being on that stage. There's that value in it for both of us. But the downside is, especially being a musician, is you get that energy and then it's gone when you go to your hotel room. And that's a high that you have to come off of. And I know that's not easy.
Well, all you have to do is stand on your head. Stand on your head and say your prayers. No, I absolutely. It's a that just in anything where it's high adrenaline, and audiences. The thing about show concerts, and having, I also, speaking as somebody who enjoys being in the audience. It's a group kind of ecstatic, ritual, and everybody
Mhm.
kind of loses themselves in it, and you want the performers to lead the way in losing themselves, and going a bit nuts. And if
Mm.
they're going a bit nuts, then you go a bit nuts. And so if you're holding back, if you're kind of, in your head or having a hard day or whatever, it just doesn't, it's not as good. I did a tour with a band not so long ago, and there was no energy coming off the band on stage at all, and the energy was all coming from the audience, and the band actually were relying on the audience to carry them through the show, and that was kind of a remarkable thing to see, and it did work. It
Okay.
did work. It was just the opposite way around,
Okay.
that you really expect it. But it's great when the band and the audience are equally off their heads.
Oh yeah. 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 It's an amazing thing to see. And, going back to Live Aid real quick, I was there for the Led Zeppelin reunion. And I will say that I know Led Zeppelin hates the performance, and I don't really remember it because I wasn't standing on my own feet. That's
What
how
what what, what do you mean? Which Led Zeppelin?
this was the original Live Aid back in 1985,
Right.
and Led Zeppelin reunited for the first time in a very long time. So this was like their big comeback, and the crowd was insane. There was I'm not a small girl,
Yeah.
and I was not standing on my own feet because the push to get
Yeah.
to closer to the stage was just that mind blowing.
Yeah. And they weren't very good.
No, they will admit
They
that
weren't very
totally.
good. I think they have Phil Collins on drums and maybe I don't know. I
I think
wonder
they had
if
Phil
Paul.
Collins and I want to say Tony Thompson because I know at one point Tony Thompson and Phil Collins were both playing, but I don't remember if it was them or somebody else. But yeah, it
I think the fact that they were really bad was part of the impetus for for Robert Plant to want to do it in the end because he didn't want to leave it on that note.
yeah.
Uh, I think on the note being the one that he couldn't hit on rock and roll, where he went lonely, 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 and it
But
was this terrible noise, and oh God, and it happens. Bands go on,
yeah.
and some great bands go on some nights, and they just suck, and they sucked, and it was the occasion. The occasion was bigger than the band, and that's what people remember. It's the audience. The audience
Hmm.
defined the gig more than the band. I remember going. We played a huge show in the late '90s with Oasis, called Nebworth, which is a kind of legendary monster gig here in England. And Pink Floyd played it, Queen played
Okay.
it, The Who, these bands that could fill that space because they have that epic sound that defined an era of those kind of huge monster gigs like Zeppelin. And Oasis became a huge band, especially in Britain, but quite quickly, and they ended up playing like 2 days at Nebworth. And we went on in the earlier part of the day, and then we stuck around and watched them go on. And we were curious to see how Oasis were going to play at this size of gig.
Hmm.
And it really didn't work. They had really just sort of barely got out of the clubs uh, relatively recently, and they were playing on this huge stage. And I remember saying to Jay, who would end up playing with them, this is kind of weird, isn't it? Like they don't really belong here. But actually, the audience had taken them there. The audience had brought them to this point, and the audience defined the event. And those shows are legendary now, because so many people came and saw them, and it didn't matter about how the band sounded. So the audience, that's people power.
Oh yeah. I mean, when going back to Live Aid, it's funny because nobody talks about the Led Zeppelin thing, but yet for a long time there was the bum note that Simon Le Bon hit. And his voice cracked. And then Duran broke up, or two members left shortly after that. It was kind of like, okay, was that part of this? But I think once again, you hit that magnitude as a performer, and what are you going to do? Some people can handle it, and some people can't. That's what it comes down to. And the bum note heard around the world. How do you come back from that? Well, you keep
I
going.
don't know. I don't know about this bum note, but I'm going to look it up now.
Oh, I want
But
to say it was during View to a Kill.
everything's on the internet
But here's the
now.
thing. in the audience, you don't pay attention to half that crap. If you're there
Yeah.
just however, I will say as a musician, it is a harder thing. You're going to pay a little bit more attention, but most of the time you're just there to have fun and you're not going to care. It's the person that's watching at home going, "Ooh, what was that?" So, yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty young. I remember it being on TV, and it was it was a huge moment in time. And I mean, in England, it was all about Phil Collins had played both. He played in
Yes.
London, and then he flew on this jet to Concord. He flew on
Mhm.
Concord to Philadelphia and played the same song. So
Yes.
was the defining moment. I remember Madonna running around singing, uh, what was that song? Groove, Get Into the Groove, and being really
Dress her
out.
up, get in the groove. The thing I remember most about Madonna that day was her, because the press swarmed. You could not even really see her down where we were.
Yeah,
And the one thing she proclaimed was, I'm not taking shit off, because Penthouse had just come out. And that was just the big scandal because she was nude in Penthouse. So she was just like covered from head to toe. And she's just like, I'm not taking shit off. And that was basically her mantra. And she went and performed with the Thompson twins. And yeah,
I didn't know that. I didn't
yeah.
know. No wonder she was out of breath. She was running around the stage, with all those clothes on. If she
And,
really wanted to, she should have stripped off and gone under her clothes.
and it was hot as anything that day. I will say that it was hot. There was no ice. They were passing bottled jugs of water back. And yeah, it's like I don't want to drink because God knows what's somebody may have put in. But eventually you just had to do something, whether somebody poured water on you or you did take some water because it was bad.
So you've been at the anniversary show.
No, I did not. I only went to the original, and that was all by chance. You talk about mysticism a little bit in your music and everything, and we were talking about connections. A local radio station, it's funny, was giving away a trip to go to Live Aid, and you had to listen to how many times they played Sussudio.
Right.
And
That's
so a friend and I stayed up,
great.
and then you had to stay for 3 days basically, from 3:30 in Friday afternoon till Sunday at midnight. And so we did. And my friend got through, I got through, and then two other girls got through, which I'm still friends with one of them from 40 years. And we got tickets and we got plane fare to go. And so that's how I got to go. But the funny thing is, the Saturday I was babysitting, somebody came out and said they won tickets to go see Rick Springfield, and I just looked at my friend after the person went away. I was like, "We're gonna go to Live Aid." I had no idea we were gonna win. There was a whole city that was gonna call in, but I knew it. It was not a doubt in my mind we were going.
There
So,
you go.
yeah, power of faith.
Yeah, there you go. How many times did you have to listen to Sussudio?
I think it was 16 times,
Jeez, you survived.
and Um, I fell asleep right before it ended, and she woke up right before it ended, so we ended up managing to catch they played it one last time, but yeah. So, yeah, it was kind of a bizarre thing, and I'm glad I did it, and the only reason I'm talking about it is because yeah, tomorrow's the anniversary, but I think, when you're talking about dreams, because in your song, Tata, you say truth comes in strange disguises. And I think that's part, whether it be dreams, whether it be symbolism, whether it be things that are presented to us. If we ask a question, whether we really intend to ask it, sometimes the symbolism is presented to us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You've got to be open. I mean, this is why there's a whole strange sort of subculture out there of people who are convinced that they are in a matrix simulation. Um, Personally, I don't kind of concur. But the trick is, that your environment does speak to you, because the whole universe is a conscious living being. So that's not just some sort of hippie stuff
No.
or something I've sort of dreamed up. This is all the old traditions say that, everything is conscious. And so yeah, being like we're talking about being present in the moment, it's also that thing of being open and letting the world communicate to you and seeing how absolutely everything is sending you messages of encouragement, and even warnings are there to help you. They're not there to sort of bum you out. Everything comes to you as a friend. The universe is on your side, and everyone has a different language for this, and all the different cultures have a different kind of path through it, a different emphasis. But it's very real. It's people, as soon as you've experienced it, you can't kind of
Oh,
come back.
no, no, you can't. I've had many dreams that from the night that have played out. I've had situations where one of the most profound moments that really made me start focusing on my intuition was when I was going to work one day, and I was on the expressway, and the expressway around here back then the top speed was 70. People wouldn't go. Now they go about 80 or 90, which I don't. But I was coming around a bend and I heard this voice that said, slow down. And I was just like, yeah, what? And then I heard it basically again say, slow down. And so I did. And as I came around that bend, traffic was stopped. I would have gotten to a serious accident. And so that was kind of like, okay, I'm going to pay attention. And I mean, I would get songs. And I think that's one thing that we don't pay attention to is because now it's like, well, there's algorithms. But if a song comes to you, whether it be in your head or playing on the radio, and you had just thought of it, that's connection. It's not just an algorithm. And
Yeah.
that's where I think some people lose that because they're like, "Oh, everything's an algorithm now." Well, some of it is, yes, but not all of it.
Well, there's two kind of this is, we're talking about, there's two views of the world, and one is that the world is a machine and we're all machines. And then the other one is that everything is conscious. And that there's a machine element, obviously, to our bodies and things like that, but which is the which is the dominant kind of truth, is the consciousness part of it. And somebody described it as a mechanistic view of reality versus a a spiritual one, a consciousness based model. And so the algorithm exists because somebody built them who's conscious. That's everything is a result of consciousness, and how we connect with these things that get built is also to do with us. So I think there's a reconciling that's possible of these ways of looking at the world. That's actually what Achinta Veda is about. It's about the reconciling of fundamentally opposing ideas. And so and I was really into it, passionate about it, still am. Achinta means inconceivable, and Beda Abeda means difference and non-difference so the simultaneous difference and non-difference of truth, of the real truth, eternal truth. So, for instance, the difference and the similarity, or sorry, the non-difference and the difference of these two views, that you can be a personality, an individual, and yet at the same time be an energy, or that there's a machine aspect to the way the world is, and there's also the conscious soul in the machine. So you can get, that's what the lyrics were about with the sun and the sunshine, for
Mhm.
instance. Sunshine is separate to the sun, but it
Yes.
obviously can't be separate to it. So it's a philosophical. The
Hey,
problem is it can handle philosophy. It really can. It can absorb it and knock it out in 3 minutes.
but sometimes that's all people can handle is just a little nugget of truth, you know?
Yeah, people are busy. I get it. We're all busy. But there comes a point in your life where you need it. You have to have it because there's nothing is making sense without these this sort of the ancestral wisdom, and it's all there. It's been around for thousands of years, and the trick is how do you practice it in this age where we are being reduced into be feeling like and being treated as machines. How do you do it? So that's I think for a lot of people is the struggle.
How many times in your life have you had something that has happened to you that you cannot explain? Because somehow it's a connection to the consciousness, however, whether it be a feeling, knowing how many times, and I'm not saying a number precisely, but I'm sure you've had many a times in your life where you've had something that just happened that you could not explain away.
All the time, yeah, every day. I think being, you got to be comfortable with the mystery of it all. Wasn't it Einstein who says, the moment that you stop having that sense of wonder at the universe is the day you should give up. And, I guess, become an accountant or something. No offense to the accountants out there. Accountants always get used as an example of the worst job.
Well, who really wants to play with numbers? But now going back to technology, is their job as hard as it used to be?
There's a lot of people I'm seeing a lot of people using like chat GPT and
Hmm.
things like that. Like people I know who are creatives, you talk to them about something and they send you something straight away, like in 10 minutes they send you some kind of creative synopsis of an idea, and you just think, well, how did you do that? And they go, oh, I just chucked it into the chat and see, here we are. And I find it's just dead. The work that gets done is dead, this technology is good for dead work. It's good for the work that doesn't require any thought, personality.
Uh-huh. Well, that's what they were saying. It messes with your brain. If you continually use that, it starts messing with your brain and shrinking your brain.
Yeah, it's awful, and it looks like it's being created, but it actually hasn't. It's just derivative, and it's just sort of compiling it from something else. So I'm not a fan, but it must be great for just like a calculator. Use it like a
Yeah.
calculator, crunching stuff. That's about it.
Well, yeah, most of my generation laughs because we were told at school if we brought a calculator, you're not allowed to bring a calculator. You're not allowed to use that in class. And now we have it on our phone all the time. So, because they're like, you're not gonna carry a calculator with you. Yeah, okay, whatever. Whatever. I wanted to talk a little bit too about the Charge of the Light Brigade video. So you decided to it's has spiritual vampires in it. What is your experience? I mean, I've dealt with spiritual vampires, but I'm not sure that everybody really realizes when somebody's being a spiritual vampire.
Yeah, I think this should kind of, I mean, we're in our video and we're
Yeah.
just goofing about in a graveyard, and enjoying, the wigs and the makeup and just having a bit of fun. But the no, I absolutely spiritual vampires, toxic people, personality disorders, this narcissistic personality disorder it's a real thing. They should teach it at school. And I've become quite fascinated by it and obsessed by it because I um it's this understanding about nature and understanding, like there is a side of nature that is very unhealthy, and that is perhaps just a real bad seed. There's bad stuff out there, and we all have people that we've met in our lives that have exhausted us and tortured us, abused us. Some people have avoided it, and I'm very, um, you know, I don't consider myself one of those people. I haven't avoided it. And when you start to see the pattern, it teaches you a lot about yourself, because ultimately they're in your life because you've attracted them, because you fit in that into that kind of relationship. And so, yeah, it makes you, forces you to have to sort of look at yourself and get healthy so that you don't attract these unhealthy types of people. And so they sometimes you think, well, they're just people um, who are destructive or something, but they actually don't make sense. These people, they're sort of incapable of empathy, and that's when it's sort of bordering on being a sociopath or psychopaths. I think it's a real thing, and yeah, I ended up inspiring a pretty silly video.
But I mean, that's the thing that you talk about falling into patterns. And from doing some research, I know that you went to some schools that you were considered, not posh enough, and the other schools you were considered too posh. And so for you, I'm sure, because I jumped around some schools as well, you kind of find yourself not fitting in. And I think when you don't fit in, as you get a little older, you start attracting these people that see you as, I don't want to say weak, but they see that you're flawed because you don't necessarily feel like you fit in. So they can feed off that energy. They have that crack in your facade that they can work. And I mean, I've dealt with my own spiritual vampires that will come after me, and energy vampires, and it's just like I've gotten to the point now, like you said, recognize that pattern of the same person I've chose, but it takes you a while to get there. And I think if you are not secure enough with yourself when you're younger, it kind of lends itself to have that door open.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's kind of how you're, the kind of person you are, how you're built attracts them, and they're psychic, and they kind of tune in, and there's a sort of a strange magnetism that attracts these types of people, and you attract them, and they attract you, and it's just, yeah, it pushes you to try and understand what's made you the way you are. And it always goes back to your early days, and who knows, even before that. But it is an incredible awareness that's out there now. I mean, you can go on YouTube, there's all sorts of people explaining narcissistic personality disorder, explaining that abuse, explaining um, the type of recovery and healing that's required. It's a big deal because it's the kind of drug abuse everyone understands, and or they're very tangible.
Right.
Whereas this kind of psychic emotional abuse, sometimes people can't get their head around it. And there's so much gaslighting involved in terms of denying that experience, or denying you what you're going through. Um, and the more I've learned about it, the more I decided, that really our governments as well, the societies we live in, are abusive.
Hmm.
We're all having to deal with these people. They don't make sense. Then they don't have your best interests at heart. They're completely self-justifying, and you kind of have to become so healthy that you can create a parallel reality that you're in, where you're not being affected by them, which is also at the same time whilst being connected to people, being able to actually have relationships, and be in the world, but not be affected by those assholes that are really making trouble. And I think the more and more people are opting out and are starting to see it, there's definitely a huge swell of awareness, and it is tied in with a kind of a spiritual growth. Um, and so whilst the world on one hand looks like it's getting much, much darker, on the other hand, there's this huge awareness and explosion of healing and awareness that's definitely going on. So it's happening at the same time, and so that's why I think a lot of people are feeling a bit schizophrenic. Am I full of hope or am I full of despair? And
Yeah.
it's, have you just kind of got a chinta beta beta tappa your way through it and reconcile it and be in that place between those two views of the world and just say that's I'm a human being. Obviously I'm going to feel like this and keep on. Stay true to your principles.
Well, I read something today that they were talking about how, and I'm not going to single out Christianity, but they were talking about religion and how religion, because kids are indoctrinated into religion, and I know somebody's going to scream at me because I said indoctrination, but you're told about heaven and hell, and you're told that if you do this, if you step out of line, you're going to be in trouble and you're going to hell. And you are placed with, dare I say, Catholic guilt at a certain age. At a certain young age, you are being told that if you do this, this is what's going to happen, and you're going to hell. So you're placed with this fear and this guilt, and but then you're told that, hey, you can go to church and it's absolved. So go be a total shit and go to church and you'll be absolved. But there's still in the background of that guilt of, am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? Because you've been indoctrinated, whether, like you said, with the government, with your school, and I think education is very important, and I think spirituality is very important. But when you look at organized religion, it's all about control, just like with the government. And so, how do you have to embrace spirituality a little bit more to see that there is a much bigger picture, because we have a president that you have all his followers that are like, well, he's a good Christian, he's selling a Bible, da, 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 da. How many affairs did he have? How many things has he done against, it's just, it's hard to reconcile where you're at when you're looking at people that are still indoctrinated into that, but it and understand that they're holding up Christianity as their means for this, that he's a good Christian. And it's like, it blows your mind. At least over here, it blows your mind because it's like every day there's something new.
Well, I think the worst type of narcissist is, and I'm not naming
I
anyone.
know.
I'm really not, but the type of narcissist that uses religion to basically justify all kinds of deranged behavior,
Hmm.
those who assume the cloak of some kind of religious right virtue or mentorship, whilst at the same time just treating people like shit, is they are the worst.
Hmm.
They are, they really are going to hell, those people. And because hell exists, it's a real thing, and you can see it on earth. Hell, this world that we live in has heaven and hell on it, and the people that we're talking about create hell for other people to live in, and they will get their karma for that. And you can only focus on your life and your decisions and not be dragged into that or sucked into it, because all of the laws, of the codes of behavior, ultimately, that they were there for our benefit,
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
a natural law, don't kill, and that,
Right.
the basic stuff that were all. And then, there was also like the tribes, the way that the tribes kept themselves in order. They didn't have complete free for all. It goes back a long time, but there is such a thing as, in India they call dharma, which is
Hmm.
like the cosmic universal law of harmony, of working, of always being in harmony with your environment. And so all of these basic truths of behavior, where you work in harmony with your environment, you work in harmony with other people, creates harmonious results, creates abundance, creates happiness, creates peace. And adharmic against dharma, that will create suffering, chaos, confusion, ignorance, fear, and so, disease. And so it's just a real basic understanding that there's one way of behavior that brings you
Hmm.
happiness, and there's another set of behavior that will ultimately create suffering. And so when you kind of start to put it into that context, it all makes sense. What you want to do is avoid these people that use all of that to put themselves in a position that then they are, cashing in.
Yeah.
Basically, you got wherever there's land and money and power and influence, and there'll be suckers, and there will be you know demons,
Hmm.
criminals going to take advantage of it. And the part of the reason, what is it in The Usual Suspects? The problem with the devil is he convinced everyone he didn't exist. And that was his greatest achievement. And this is it with regards to the devil, whatever you want to call this behavior, is that the suckers, the good guys can't believe that anyone would ever behave like that.
There's a great line in Don Henley's song "The Garden of Allah," and the line is, "I'm an expert witness because I say I am," and that
Yeah.
basically is what these people are. They think, "Well, I know what's right because I said it." No, no, but the devil will tell you that, will he not?
Well, yeah. I think there's a certain amount of, naivety and gullibility amongst normal people, good people,
Hmm.
that they're just too trusting. And we all are. We can't imagine that acts of evil would be committed because we can't, a normal, healthy person can't imagine that you would ever do such a thing. But these people do every day, and then they kind of like, anyway. So it's our job to get healthy in our own hearts, and that's why this whole idea of abuse and spiritual vampires, it ultimately brings you back to yourself,
Hmm.
because it's up to you to stop being a plug that they can affix themselves to. You have to completely change who you are and heal.
Well, it's much easier for somebody to believe in a God than believing that we're all connected, because that would be too weird for some people, that we're all equal.
Well, we are all equal,
Mhm,
but the God is the sun, and we
mhm,
are rays of light, and that's a mystery that to be explored. That's an eternal relationship that you explore and you cultivate, and different traditions will
right.
lead you to different relationships. And I always say, it's not about religion, it's about relationship.
Yeah,
And that's the difference. The religions kind of, they kind of give people what they need, and moral codes or whatever, or the community. But the truth is the relationship, and that evolves, and there are lots of different paths and lots of different experiences, and it's up to everybody to see where it takes them.
I had an interesting conversation with somebody because in one of my books that I wrote, I used the ISIS creation story, where we talk about Ra and they talk about um, Osiris. And yes, my mind with my chemo, sometimes my mind does not give me all the exact facts because, anyway, I know you know what I'm talking about. The creation story about how Osiris was broken up into many pieces by his brother Set, and Isis ended up conceiving immaculately and giving birth to a son, which is the same story as what's in Christianity. And my friend, had never heard the Isis story, was just like, well, because I only put a little bit in the book. She's like, no, 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 I need to hear more about this. I'm not aware of this creation story. But the fact of the matter is, most religions have similar stories throughout them. We just don't take the time to investigate. And I think when you start embracing spirituality, you get to look at the bigger picture of how these cultures and how these religions all have similarities, and we can grow from them.
Well, it's all growing from the same tree,
Hmm.
and if you go far enough back in time, you will find that there was a kind of, these kind of mother cultures, these sort of origin
Hmm.
culture. I mean, how far back it goes, the kind of modern scientific view of how far our civilizations go back. Yeah, they're kind of blagging it, put it mildly. And this is what they believe at the moment, and they'll change the story as they go. But you go far enough back, and you have these stories, and they didn't all come out of some guy in a cave just sort of
Right.
making it up. There's some profound truths there, and I'm not that familiar with the Egyptian. I kind of know about it, but only very sort of in passing. Jay knows a little bit more. He's quite into all of that. We should have got him on, but yeah, it's the same language, and you go far enough back, and it all joins up.
I know that we've talked a lot about about spirituality and stuff, and I know we talked a little bit about music, but I do have to ask, do you have any new music coming out?
Yes, for goodness sake, I was waiting to plug my
Oh, I'm
record.
sorry. Oh.
Yes, I'm available at your local
I
record
always
store.
try to get people when I have people on here, you're gonna go on every other podcast and talk about your music, and that's about all you're gonna talk about. So I always try to make it a little different here. So
No, I appreciate it. It's been a delightful chat, and yeah, ultimately you want your music to be an expression of where you're at, and when you write a song, you end up, you know, processing stuff, and it's like a mirror, and you go, oh, look at that, I guess that was on my mind, or wow, where did that come from? And you know, so we got a record. I think it's coming out we've just made a record called Natural Magic, which was like, I don't know, a year ago.
actually, I want to ask you about that real quick. Sorry to interrupt. I noticed that you put it out on 2/2/24, and I'm like, is he doing some numerology stuff here, or was it just by happenstance?
It was just a cosmic accident of chronology forwards, and
Sir, just curious.
I mean, we had the first Congregational Church of Eternal Love and Free Hugs, which was 2022. We were going for the longest possible title we could think of, and then Natural Magic was like 18 months later, and now we've got the new record coming out this year, or the very beginning of next year. And we'll be releasing a whole bunch of like lead tracks before we drop the record, and then we're gonna have another record as well next autumn, I think. So we're kind of on a major creative sort of explosion. I mean, I don't know how it happened. I'm not sure. Jay came back in the band. He'd had this sort of hiatus with Oasis, and then he hung his spurs up, and just at the top time that we needed a keyboard player, and he's just happened to be back on the scene, and hooking up with Jay and having our original lineup took us back to being kids again, and it really we reconnected with the reason we got the band together in the first place, why we started playing music in the first place. It was a real shot in the arm, and has just led to this kind of sort of unstoppable torrent of new music and gigs. So yeah, it feels really good as well that we've gotten off our asses, because we spent 15 years doing like an album every 5 years.
Oh, wow.
It was really, like I was doing films, and Alonza was producing, and Paul was playing with other people, and we had kids, and life just became about other things as well. And so it was fine for then, but it's been great to just get back and be really going for it again. It's good timing.
Back to your passion.
Well, certainly putting it front and center, And then it's strange that it's happened at the same time that this kind of sort of Britpop resurgence, which is kind of all tied in with everyone having this 30th anniversary, which is crazy too. And it doesn't feel so bad to say it either, because with the people like the Rolling Stones still going,
Hmm.
you're still the younger band
Yeah,
compared
yeah.
to them. They're like the trailblazers on the Maccas, and Dylan and the Stones and all those of all that generation of rock and roll. They're still going, and that when they were 40, everyone's like, "Oh my God,
Mm,
Mick Jagger 40." It's nothing now
no,
for a band.
no. So are you planning on doing any more film work ever?
Yeah, I am actually, but I'm tying it in with the band, so the band doesn't have to stop when the film work starts, which is what happened in the past. I'd have to say, I got to take 3, 4 years off and do all this film. But now we're kind of combining our forces, so there's going to be a film that the band is involved in. So I can't say anymore,
Oh, I know, I
but
know. That's fine.
good.
Simon
I
Pegg's
can't more. I just don't want to jinx it, to be
no, I
honest.
oh, I know that's the whole thing. You don't want to jinx something by talking about it. I get it. So I totally get it. Simon Pegg's still going to be part of the collab or no?
Oh, I mean,
You don't have to. If you don't want to say anything,
I
it's fine.
don't have to. Don't. I'm such a blabbermouth.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. I completely understand. And when and
So
if
I saw him the other day, and he was wearing a very fine pair of yellow tinted spectacles, and I said, I want to get a pair so that the next time I see you, I can be wearing some shades, and we can look like all right, couple of idiots. But yeah, he's funny. He's been a real joy to work with.
here's something interesting about yellow spectacles. So the husband who was legally blind had a lot of laser surgery, and you wearing yellow glasses allowed him to see some of the rods, some of the colors that were gone because of the surgeries. So
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, sometimes those colored lenses are for other reasons, but I don't know Simon, so could be wrong. If you want to come back again, you're more than welcome to. We can talk about your new record. We can talk about the quiet project, the film project, whatever.
Yeah,
So, but do you have anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to add?
I think we've touched on quite a scope of subjects here. We've delved into the fabric of reality, spiritual vampires, new music, blindness,
Hmm.
healing,
Hmm.
right, the spiritual roots of rock and roll. I think we've done all right. I got
Okay.
to say.
Well,
If I can think of anything, I'll send you a note.
I thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me on.
Crispin and I had a very interesting conversation, and I think it's important that not only did we talk about music, but we talked about spirituality. And talking about that, you know, I've talked about it before about the energy you receive while you're up on stage, but talking to him about energy and the different aspects of psychic vampirism and just karma and dharma and all those things put together, we can see a bigger picture in the world. And it's like the parameters that are placed above us that keep us in line. Yes, we need laws, we need respect, and we need, I don't want to say to be told what to do, but we also need something that is going to benefit us all and take care of us all. And I think that's important. If we look at life, especially with people that are in charge, sometimes they have so much power that they let ego lead and they think about the only thing that is making money and doing things that will help them and benefit them. But the fact of the matter is, and one thing that we didn't talk about, but most of us all have discussed, is the fact of the matter is when people are just solely based on the material, on money, there's something lost because you can't take that with you. You can have 5 houses, you can have 6 boats, you can have 18 cars, but none of that's coming with you. Your billion-dollar bank account is not coming with you. So wouldn't it be better to benefit the world instead of keeping amassing fortunes and allowing people to starve and die? Because you want more money, you want more power, you want more clout. But wouldn't it be better to support everybody, to try to educate people, to try to nourish people, to allow people to do what they need to do to live instead of tossing them someplace where, well, they're not valued? Because that's the one thing when, when we talk about psychic vampirism, which we didn't get to as far as this aspect of it, is self-worth. And people don't really recognize that other people have value. Some people feel that people with disabilities aren't, they don't hold value anymore, that they're just disposable. And the one thing is, energy is not disposable. As Crispin talked about, energy lives on. So next time you think that, well, it doesn't matter, everything is just, I'm going to die, everything's going to be fine. The thing is, your energy is going to live on. And to me, which we didn't reach, and I almost did, there's reincarnation. So what if you transform into another life? What if you are brought into another life? And how is that going to play out for you? Because you decided to be awful. And so at that point, is that another version of hell? If your karma catches up with you in the next lifetime and your life is a living hell and you are the person that is disabled, you are the person that you mocked or similar to, you have to realize that with energy, every action has a reaction and understand that life is always in flux and changing, and embrace what you need to embrace. But understand that everything that you amass, you can't take with you. Everything you, except for your karma now, because you will amass that as well. So, one rule that I did not talk about when we were talking about rules and regulations, I have friends that are witches that will say, the threefold law, whatever you put out there comes back to you threefold. Now, some people will disagree with that. But isn't that a very simple way to live life? That if you're putting out good in the world, then good will come back. And, you know, the fact that we were talking about the things that are presented, lessons that are presented. Yeah, sometimes life seems like it's really crappy, but the fact of the matter is things will progress and move forward, and you will learn a lesson from it, and you will heal from this. And sometimes we have to face those past traumas and heal and work through them, and that's okay. Because ultimately, on the other side of it, we own ourselves and we've learned a lesson. So, on that note, you definitely should go check out Kula Shaker, and you get to check out the Dandies too. So, it will, not all the tour, but part of the tour is Kula Shaker, and the other part of the tour is with the Dandies. So, definitely go check them out. And yeah, look forward to new music from them too. Because, and if you haven't checked out the charge of the Light Brigade, he's talking about long titles. Well, yeah, I'm the queen of long titles because let's see, I had My Days of Dancing with the Dark Muse. I had Fairy Tales and I Love You. Love is Worth Waiting For, which is went back to the original title of Worth Waiting For. Um, is Love Just Another High? So yeah, I understand about the long titles, but definitely go check out their music and look forward to having new music coming. Anyway, on that note, I'd like to thank Fast Susie for the intro and outro. I'd like to thank Crispin for coming on the show, and I like to thank you guys for tuning in, whether it be morning, noon, or night. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye.